From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Once the punching bag of Rhode Island with wait times longer than a root canal, the Rhode Island DMV is touting dramatically reduced lines, potentially lowering blood pressure statewide. Is it a dramatic turnaround or the slow demand of autumn? Our guest for the first half, the interim administrator of the Rhode Island Department of Motor Vehicles, Lisa Holley. Then, the politics of pensions. The landmark legislation aimed at reforming the retirement system could reshape the political careers of a number of public officials as well. The pension reform post-mortem with our political roundtable. Joining us for the second half, Eyewitness News political analyst Joe Fleming.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel this week, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nisi and Eyewitness News analyst Arlene Violet. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Lisa. Thank you for joining us. Good morning. I'd like you to answer the question that I asked at the top of the program there. Are reduced wait times a product of a new and improved DMV, or is it just a slower time of year?
It's a new and improved DMV from top to bottom. It's been a culmination of about 7 months of retooling the business process and also using the technology that we had in place more efficiently to better serve the customers.
Well, we had you on last, I think, in April, and you had just taken over at that time, or you finding your way. The wait times then were horrible. Is the true test coming in the spring?
Yes, but I think from today until the spring, we will continue to see improvement. Currently, we have about 95% of the customers that come into the DMV are in and out in less than an hour and a half. And for the most part, looking back at last week, most people only spent 30 minutes in the DMV. But when you say it's a slow time, slow is relative. Currently, in the last 2 weeks, we've had about 1,000 people come in and leave the Cranston DMV alone. The most we usually get in the peak times are about 1,200. But there's been a few things that have happened since the wait times have diminished. We've added new CSRs. We have
What are CSRs?
I'm sorry, customer service reps. There's now 14 new staff there to process transactions. We're using what I call our air traffic control. It's something called Q-matic. That's that awful thing that you hear when you walk in, now serving.
Yeah.
That's more than a deli ticket. It's actually a way to manage the people that are coming in. We've now parsed out the transactions so we know who's waiting for what transaction, and the managers can take staff off of one priority and put them on another to get people in and out in a more efficient fashion. The other thing we've done that we're really proud of, and that's really changed what people think of the DMV, is we have launched a full customer service excellence program. All the customer service reps, as well as all the staff at the DMV, have been trained in customer service. And some people think that's simple. Of course, they should have been trained, but these are state employees that have never been afforded the opportunity to know how to deal with a person, how to de-escalate a problem, how to give courteous, confidential service. So in partnership with Amica Insurance, everybody at the DMV has been trained in customer service, and next week we're rolling out a new DMV logo and a new customer service agreement.
Let's, if we could, and I'm sorry I'm hoarding the questions here, panel, but since you brought it up, I'd like to talk about that new DMV logo, and I don't know, Nick, if you can bring that up. This is the new logo that you guys are going to be touting, and you know, I don't mean to sound like a grump here, Lisa, but how does a new logo fix wait times, and how much did this cost?
This logo cost absolutely nothing.
You designed it yourself?
It was designed by staff, IT staff in the state. We actually had a contest. We had 8 different logos, and this is the one that the DMV picked that best represents the new DMV. If you could see, there's the wave in the back, which was the old one, and also the anchor. It's a fresh day for DMV. So how does it impact wait times? The logo itself does not, but the entire rebranding does. That we're there to help and service customers. The days of people being afraid to go to the DMV because they're going to get grumpy, lazy customer service reps, that was never the case, but now we need people to know that we're there to serve the public, and we're going to do so with a smile and with efficiency. And so that's the first thing we did was just rebrand it, roll it out. That will be on a customer service agreement, which tells the customers what to expect. And if we don't meet their expectations, there's a process for redress.
During April 8th taping of Newsmakers, you mentioned that you were looking into doing different kinds of outsourcing, either making more transactions, being able to be done online. You brought up a pilot program potentially with having some dealerships actually do the paperwork and not hold up the lines with 6, 8, 10 transactions. In the last 7 months, what progress has been made on either of those two fronts?
We have added an additional 14 dealers, which are car dealerships in the state. Right now, due to IT reasons, we can't put many more on, but we have loaded it up as much as we can. So if someone purchases a car at a dealership, it can all be done there. That's keeping people out of the DMV. We, within the next 4 weeks, will be accepting credit cards. That was a huge issue because people would come without a method of payment. So I'm happy to say before the end of the year we'll have credit cards. And also we will be going probably in the next 2 months to renewing licenses online. That's been a huge IT initiative because of the technology that's needed to be able to print a document from home.
Were the 14 dealerships based on volume?
Yes, it was. We have an extensive waiting list for dealers that want to go on, but there were minimum volume criteria that they had to meet. So they're some of the more major dealerships in the state. And once the computer is able to allow for more, we'll be putting more on. We're very willing to do a lot of things online.
I loaded up, I have a lot of friends who've been to the DMV lately, and I have to admit some remain skeptical about whether things are getting significantly better at the DMV. Some of these people have hourly jobs, very hard for them to take the time off. They don't get paid for that. And I loaded up the website this morning, and I want to read you the closing times for the DMV offices. 3:15, 3:30, 3:30, 3:30, 3:30, 3:30, 3:15, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 3:30. In 2011, a lot of people are still at work at 3:30. Why isn't any part of the DMV open past that?
Well, we have, of the 14 new hires, half of them were hired on with alternate work schedules at 10 to 6. Currently, the staff at the DMV are actually hired on to those work hours. That
is it
it's
a
an
union?
8 to 4. Yes. So if we were to stay open later than 4 o'clock, my goal is to have a few offices open until 7 o'clock a few nights a week, and also a Saturday office. Currently, the way the staffing is, that's overtime, and that's something that I'm sure the taxpayers right now in this bad economic situation.
So that's something previous DMV leaders allowed into the contract.
Yes, it's always that. Those are standard work hours for state employees.
You can't shift the hours or 8-hour shift?
No, no. We have to hire workers in with alternate work schedules. So half of the new ones are 10 to 6 employees. So once we stay open later, they'll be staffing those. And you know, I talked before about opening a mall type branch. We're looking at
And there was one that closed, but
yes,
yeah.
The Warwick one closed when they opened the Cranston office just due to the location. It didn't make sense. But we're looking in other metropolitan areas for a mall branch that we can have these alternate
You know,
hours.
some of these improvements, are they Cranston centric? I asked on Twitter for people to send me their experiences, and one woman said her daughter went to get her license renewed in Wakefield. It took 2.5 hours. So when we talk about improvements, is this generally speaking the massive Cranston headquarters?
No, not necessarily. We've just set up a Middletown branch that is set up the way that Cranston is. The one big thing about Cranston is now you don't get your own ticket. In the past, there were ticket machines and it was self-serve and we never knew who was there. Now you actually go through an information booth where a customer service rep is checking what you want to do and giving you a specific ticket. We've now set Middletown up as well, and the plan is to go to each of the branches and set up this flow. This is a business flow we know that works, and the branches need to be set up similarly.
Does DMV pay for itself, or do you make money?
Oh, we make a lot of money.
Like what?
Last year, $70 million went to the general fund from the DMV.
So part of it is they're not reinvesting. The Assembly isn't necessarily reinvesting as much money as comes into the DMV into the operations of the DMV, unlike, say, if it was a private business where the money coming in, you could use more of it on your own to invest.
No, it's not. It doesn't go into a restricted receipt
Yeah.
account that we then draw down from. This goes right to the general fund.
I want to ask you, Lisa, months back I spoke with Dan Grabowskis, who widely credited my father, always used to say to me, he fixed the Massachusetts RMV, which is where I grew up when he ran it from 99 to 02. He told me, I asked him, how'd you do it? He said, quote, support and clear direction from the top, from the governor, was key to our team's ability to cut through red tape and make the changes necessary to effect the turnaround. The governor's strong personal statements in Rhode Island bodes well for that effort. Is that the key, are you finding, that Governor Chafee's focus on this makes it easier to make the changes?
Absolutely. His focus on fixing the DMV has brought us the ability to hire the new CSRs, and also, like everything in state government and purchasing, whatever, it's very slow. The governor has made this a priority, so we do get quick response from purchasing from the Department of Administration, because this is the governor's focus.
Lisa, we are going to be wrapping up here, but I'm curious to know how long you are going to be. You're the interim administrator, as I pointed out at the top of the show.
Yes.
How long will you be in that position?
I don't have an end date, but I think probably by the beginning of the year I'll be back at Department of Public Safety. That would be my goal. Time is right for me to hand it over to someone to take the lead and
No
go with
interest in taking it over full-time? I mean, they're going to have to look for...
We're in the process of looking for a replacement. I made this commitment to the governor that I would turn the ship around and then hand it off, and I'm at the point where now I will hand it off. The team will stay in place, but I think it's time for a leader to come in and just carry the work forward.
Have you not been enjoying it?
I do enjoy it, but I'm a lawyer and I want to practice law, and I love my job at Department of Public Safety. That's really where I want to be.
All right, Lisa Holley, thank you very much for joining us on the program. And when we come back, the politics of pensions. We're going to bring in our Eyewitness News political analyst, Joe Fleming. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right, Ted Nisi and Arlene Violet, and we welcome Eyewitness News political analyst Joe Fleming. Joe, it simply isn't a November, even in an off year, unless you appear on Newsmakers. So thank you very much for joining us. And we should point out, as a retired teacher, you are a pensioner.
Yes, I am.
You'll get your only COLA next year, right?
That's right. My first and last COLA, possibly.
Oh, don't say that. We're talking about the politics of pensions today. Joe, we'll start with you. Okay. A year ago, we saw that Labor flex its political muscle up at the General Assembly, ousting legislators that they viewed as anti-labor, including Democrats. The vote for pension reform was 34-2 in the Senate, and in the House 57-15. They'd have a lot of work to do if they were going to try and do that again. What's the fallout of the General Assembly, if any?
Well, first off, I think if Labor was going to go after somebody, it wouldn't just be on the pension issue, due to the fact that some of the people they supported very strongly last time voted for the pension reform yesterday.
Like
for example, Representative Morrison, who beat Doug Gablinski, Representative Tanzi, who beat David Capriel. These are two people Labor strongly supported, but voted for pension reform yesterday. I think what Labor would probably do is look at representatives who maybe are really anti-labor in all sorts of areas and target a couple of those people for the 2012 election. But I think the General Assembly yesterday, by voting for pension reform, put themselves in a lot better position for re-election. Makes it a lot harder for the Republican Party to go after the Democrats, saying they're against all these good reforms when they supported the biggest reform in state history.
You could hear that on the floor I was there till, whatever time we finished last night. And Bob Watson and Larry Earhart and I believe Brian Newbery said it too, who are all Republican leaders there, all said, well, we really like this bill. The preamble is the Republican platform of the last 20 years. And so whether that's true or not, they can also see that this is kind of taking some of their core issues out of it.
Well, of course, legislators maybe in outlying areas and districts would have had a tougher time if they had voted against it. But was there a danger for those that are in a more urban area that voted for pension reform, where Labor has a stronger hold?
Well, those who voted for pension reform in an urban area could have more of a problem in a Democratic primary. For example, if you're from Providence or Pawtucket or Woonsocket, you're probably not going to get beat by a Republican candidate. You would get beat by a Democratic candidate. And Labor is the strongest in Democratic primaries.
Sure.
Because the turnout's smaller,
and that's what
they
we
can
saw
mobilize.
with Gablinski and
we
Morrison.
saw that with 5 races last time in 2010. But most of the people who voted for the pension reform, a lot of them, you can see, are in South County, Aquidneck Island, areas where a Republican could really take that issue and use it against them strongly.
All right, I want to bring this up for those who wanted to see pension reform happen. Tremendous credit goes to General Treasurer Gina Raimondo. She put it to the top of the state's agenda. But something for a point of discussion here. She was never on board adding pension reform for the 36 independently managed and sometimes troubled city and town pension plans. She said that what was put into the bill and later taken out was rushed. The due diligence was never done. What I don't understand is why didn't she do the due diligence on that? Doesn't she, as treasurer, have the responsibility here to make sure that those pension plans are fiscally sound?
First of all, she's a state office holder. She has to make sure that what she manages is that way. Morally,
oh, come on. As Providence goes, so does the state.
Well,
look at Central Falls.
Look, Providence likes to tell us that because it's been hooked up to the intravenous for so long. They want to tell us that. But to go back to her, she's correct.
No, but wait a minute.
Legally.
When a city fails, who takes over?
Well,
a state receiver,
eventually.
a state appointed receiver. So
they've been paying for Central Falls School District for 20 years.
Look, she's legally correct in what she did. Gio Ciccione was here in September. He outlined the requirements of the 2 Supreme Court cases that require that any legislation has to have a preamble that lays out clearly and without hesitation what the dramatic economic crisis is that is requiring now that you have to interfere with a contract right. You also have to put down what's the liabilities of the state or the municipality. 3, you have to talk about what the rate of return is and document what your rate of return is in that particular pension. And last but not least, you have to say that we've looked at all the sources of revenue. You don't necessarily have to raise taxes or mitigate COLAs, but you have to look at how can we possibly pay this off. We can't. We have to make the change. That's what she's put into the preamble in the 130-plus pages of the bill that she put in. My position is she's legally correct that if cities or towns want these changes, they've got to do the homework she's been talking about.
There's no way I'm going to get into a legal fight with a former attorney general of the state. But that wasn't her argument. Her argument wasn't legal acumen. Her argument was that they just didn't do the work on it.
Well, that's implicit is this argument that I'm making. You have to have backup reports. You just can't say, I'm going to interfere.
If that's the case, Treasurer Raimondo, and I mean no disrespect, in some ways snookered Cranston Mayor Alan Fung and to an extent Governor Chafee last spring by convincing them to get on board with the overall reform when their buy-in was that we're going to do the local plans too. And they spent hours, not those people say you always say that the pension advisory group was a dog and pony show, but they did countless hours behind the scenes.
Oh, come on!
Of work.
First of all,
they did. And if she had made that a priority, wouldn't the work have been done and this could have been ready for the bill?
Look at how much work had to go into just to get this particular thing passed. And I really think that snooker is much too harsh a term. The fact of the matter is that mayors have been bemoaning these problems for years. They have city and town solicitors. Their solicitors should have been aware of what these 2 Supreme Court cases are, vis-a-vis the local Kachiri case, by the way, and they should have known. And frankly, I think they need to put in legislation specific to each town. The reason why Raimondo and the legislature, in my view, couldn't do an all-encompassing plan is that you have to have specificity as to what the problem is. So, you know, Cranston can talk its game, and so can Warwick, but where's the evidence for North Smithfield that they need to be able to suspend COLAs?
Actually, Warwick did not want
it. And Westerly, yeah, that's right, Warwick didn't. You have to, and by the way, we want it that way. We shouldn't have the right to interfere with contractual relations unless there's a compelling case. So every city and town before January, if they want the relief they were looking for in this present legislation, they should be directing their town and city solicitors to look at exactly what is required under the case law and to submit their own bills to get the enabling legislation they want.
Keep in mind, she's only been general treasurer since January. 11 months. Look what she's accomplished.
Bingo.
You know, now let's see what she does in the next year. If she does address the local 36 municipal pension problems, if she addresses that, then she's finished the problem.
You know, you're giving the lion's share of the credit, and justly so, to the general treasurer, but you know, a lot of people had to get in line to pass this pension reform. You need leadership at the General Assembly.
Exactly.
the standout here, Governor Chafee comes out here as someone who supported pension reform. He was obviously outspoken on the municipal pension reform, which he lost on that big time. Why does it seem that Governor Chafee has been some castaway in this, and is that fair?
Well, it seems that way because Gina Raimondo has done an excellent job. Remember, she's a novice politician. She just got elected first time.
Doesn't seem like it, does it?
Not at all. That's what I'm saying. She's done an excellent job over these 11 months, getting people in line. If there was an event to talk about pensions, she was there. If there was a union event, she went to it. She brought the unions into the pension reform. She brought people in from the mayors in. She brought everybody in. She got everybody to sign on board with this. And she got them in a position where they basically had to go along with the pension reform. She made it such a big issue that the Rhode Islanders got upset with it, and everyone knew something had to be done.
You're saying she overshadowed the governor, but is the criticism that he's getting fair?
I don't think it's fair, Tim, necessarily. I think, and I wrote this in a column on PRI.com this morning, that and Governor Chafee and his staff, I do think, have to take some of the blame. If they had worked harder to put forward that he seemed energetic about this issue as she did, the public perception might have been different. But I think, go all the way back to Raimondo's masterstroke, which was that retirement board vote in April before people really understood what was going on. She got everyone on board. She had a meeting with the governor, Richard Leach, and Tom Mulaney, the budget officer. And Gina Raimondo laid out to the governor, look, if we vote to change the investment, to change the mortality next month, our budgets are going to have a huge hole in them next year. But I think this is what we have to do. The governor asked Leach and Mulaney. They said, we think she's right. He said, all right, vote for it. Bam. So that was a time when Chafee stood with her. He stood with her on the bill. He bucked his allies from the unions. So I think it seems unfair that, if we want politicians who will courageously buck the special interests, as we always say, who got them elected, but now he gets no credit on it. What's the point of doing it?
Yeah, he deserves kudos. It took great political courage for
Which
him.
is to take nothing away from Raimondo. She did it.
And the question is, what if Lincoln Chafee didn't get elected governor and John Robitaille did?
Right.
Would the General Assembly let this reform go through?
Because they didn't with Kacheri.
Exactly. So I wonder if this would, because of Lincoln Chafee, it did go through.
You gentlemen also must feel, I hope, that Gordon Fox as well as Teresa Piver-Weed deserve a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Certainly Fox. I wonder, it's been very unclear to me with Senate President Piver-Weed where she worked constructively on the bill. Certainly she didn't prevent it, which is clear, but I have to say, in months and months of exhaustive reporting on this, I have never heard a story where Senate President Piver-Weed came forward, and whereas with Speaker Fox, I can point to various times people say he kept someone on board, he had some meetings that were crucial, he brokered a compromise.
So her standing on the rostrum last night and telling her, and by the way, she got a better, in what everyone viewed as a labor-friendly Senate, she got a better ratio of votes on her side. You don't think that was standing strong on the rostrum and saying that you need to vote for this?
It's a matter of style. She was doing it behind the scenes and not... Gordon sometimes is forced out.
Perhaps.
Because remember, he had to come out a lot of times to address various legislators being arrested while they had him in hospital about this pension.
All of whom showed up last night, by the way.
And the Senate already stuck their neck out for labor with binding arbitration last session.
That's right.
They weren't. I don't think the Senate was about to do that twice in a row.
Yet you could tell Mike Stanton in the Providence Journal had a fantastic piece earlier this week about how the Senate president wouldn't even shake the governor's hand because he had put that pension reform aspect, the municipal pension, the local stuff in there. That was really telling. All right.
And listen, Piver-Weed's an attorney.
Right.
You know, she doesn't toot her own horn a lot. She probably knows that to do so.
Most of the time, attorneys do toot their own horn for the record.
Hey, you don't become Senate president as a shrinking violet, no pun intended.
But I lost my crow on the way in, by the way, because I was going to eat crow today. Because I said I thought they wouldn't make these kinds of reforms. So I was wrong, gentlemen.
Wow, dear diary. Arlene Violet admits she was wrong. All right, everyone's wondering, is Gina Raimondo going to run for higher office? She ducks the question all the time, but we can talk about it here. She's a Democrat. If she runs for higher office, Joe, it's conceivable right now that she might not have the support of the unions if she runs for governor. Neither will Lincoln Chafee. So who are they going to stand behind? And, or could you see unions actually coming around and supporting someone like Gina Raimondo?
It's a possibility. I mean, 2014 is another 2.5 years away yet. So you've got a lot of time. Things change. Gina brought labor into these discussions. They may not agree what she did, but labor can still say they've got some changes in the pension bill as a result of this. And if Gina said no to them, it could have blocked them right from the beginning. I mean, they got the age to be more flexible now. They got the COLAs down to 5 years. So the Labor can say, we got some concessions out of this bill in the very end. We're still going to fight it in court, but we did get some things better.
Well, go ahead, Ted.
I was just going to say quickly, her position right now reminds me a little of Barack Obama before the '06 midterms, where running for president was clearly, it was up to him at this point. He was going to be able to make a competitive bid, and at this point, if she wants to run for governor in 2014,
Absolutely.
she can make a bid, and she could very likely win, and with the
The
caveat.
message is she saved the pension
Exactly.
for the newcomers.
I would say she's the most
That's a
popular
compelling
politician in
message.
the state of Rhode Island right now, even above Jack Reed at this point.
Well, if fundraising is a poll, then certainly that is a clear evidence.
Well,
that-
fundraising is definitely not a poll because we got Frank Caprio and find that didn't move him
good
well.
point, yeah.
However, she is now, like you just said, Arlene, she saved the state of Rhode Island. And as a result of that, she has the pulpit to really run on and say, look what I've done as general treasurer. Look what I can do as governor, because I will stand up to people and I will work to get things done and get things done
And I've got to
quickly.
point out, who was sitting next to me last night as we waited to interview her after the vote? Time magazine. I mean, this woman her star is on the
Right.
rise.
Yeah, but
Deservedly
those aren't
so.
her constituents, if she were to stay right out. All right.
right.
Listen, thank you for watching Newsmakers. For the most complete coverage of pensions, you got to check out Ted Nisi on Nisi's Notes. I'm sure you want a break from pension coverage.
Yeah.
And if you missed any of this show, log on to WPRI.com. I want to thank you for watching. For Arlene Violet, Ted Nisi, and Joe Fleming, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.
Fantastic. Great
5 a
session.
week.